Okay, let's dive into this. Today, we're unpacking the Farrer by-election. On paper, it might just look like your standard local contest, but if you dig a little deeper into recent Sky News analysis, there's a much bigger, much more fascinating story emerging. What we're actually looking at is a massive barometer for regional Australia. It's really highlighting this growing, pretty undeniable disconnect between policymakers sitting in Canberra and the voters who are actually living these realities on the ground every single day. Let's see exactly what's unfolding here.
So, the big question right now, is the political landscape about to fundamentally shift? According to the Sky News analysis we're looking at, they're framing this by-election as way more than just a standard vote. It's functioning almost like a massive megaphone for voters trying to reach the political establishment. So what we're analyzing today isn't simply about who snags a single seat. It's a potential preview, literally a sneak peek, of the political dynamics we might see play out on a massive national scale in the 2028 elections. The stakes are incredibly high, and the data paints a seriously interesting picture as to why.
Here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll look at the regional disconnect. Second, shifting the polling landscape. Third, the candidates and controversies. Fourth, analyzing campaign strategy. And finally, future political implications. We're going to zoom in on specific FAR issues first, and then zoom out to the broader national strategy.
All right, on to Section 1, the regional disconnect and the frustrations in Farrer. To really grasp what's happening, we absolutely have to start with the historical context of this seat.
1949. That is the magic number to focus on here. The seat of Farrer has been safely held in either Liberal or National hands since its very inception in 1949. I mean, think about that. For over 70 years, this place has been an absolute stronghold. It's exactly why any current shift away from the status quo is nothing short of monumental. When a seat with this much deep, embedded political history starts to even wobble, well, it tells us that something fundamental is shifting in the electorate's mood.
So the crucial point is that this frustration isn't just coming out of thin air, right? It's rooted in tangible, everyday realities. Voters are feeling the serious squeeze from cost of living pressures. They're dealing with pretty glaring gaps in regional infrastructure. Plus, they are highly concerned about water security, particularly out in the Riverina and the border towns. Look, these aren't just abstract political theories being debated in Canberra. They are real-world issues driving the growing frustration that the current political system just simply isn't working for these communities anymore.
Moving along to Section 2, shifting the polling landscape and the rise of one nation. Let's see exactly how those local frustrations we just talked about are translating directly at the ballot box.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer scale of the jump. It's staggering, honestly. Look at the difference here. Just over 12 months ago, polling showed One Nation sitting at under 7% in Farrer. But current polling, it has them surging to roughly 30%. 7 to 30. That is a massive leap in a very short amount of time. It really emphasizes just how rapidly voter sentiment is shifting away from traditional strongholds and moving toward alternative options.
And the thing is, this isn't an isolated incident. A really clear pattern is emerging. Earlier this year, One Nation actually secured over 20% of first preference votes in the South Australian state election. Then, just last weekend, they picked up nearly 25% of the primary vote in the Victorian seat of Nepean. And tomorrow, the Farrer by-election represents their next major test. This accelerating momentum clearly shows that the polling surge in Farrer isn't a fluke. It's part of a much broader, coordinated push for them to prove their relevance at the federal level.
Section 3, the candidates and controversies. A two-horse race. Polling strongly indicates this has tightened into a fascinating contest, so let's look at the specific individuals competing here.
Both candidates bring their own unique political baggage to the table. On one side, we've got David Farley, the One Nation candidate. He's currently facing some pretty intense questions surrounding his political past, namely his 2025 Labour run. Then on the other side, we have Michelle Milthorp, the Teal independent, who stands as the other major force in this tight two-horse race. Now, Farley's past has undeniably become a major talking point in this campaign.
To understand the whole Farley controversy a bit better, the Sky News analysis shared a rather revealing perspective from former Labour MP Joel Fitzgibbon. He noted that Farley has actually always leaned conservative. He said, and I quote, "He was looking for a vehicle to jump onto to defeat the coalition, and obviously Labour was that vehicle at the time." It's an incredibly intriguing character-driven narrative, right? It suggests that Farley's controversial political history was way less about any sort of ideological alignment with Labour and much more about finding a practical, viable way to challenge the dominant Liberal national coalition in the region.
Okay, Section 4, analyzing campaign strategy. Following the resources.
Let's look at the Sky News critique of exactly how the Liberal Party has responded to these challengers, focusing heavily on their resource allocation.
And this brilliantly illustrates the situation. If we take a look at Liberal Australia's Instagram ad spending over 130 posts since early February, a massive disparity emerges. A full 22% of those ads were dedicated entirely to attacking One Nation, while only 7% were focused on the Teal Independent. The data shows you exactly, without a doubt, where they're choosing to direct their social media firepower.
But is that firepower actually aimed in the right direction? Well, according to the source analysis, the answer is no. The critique suggests the Liberal campaign is basically pouring resources into fighting the wrong opponent, which creates a really fascinating strategic puzzle. See, the Liberals actually have a preference deal with One Nation. That makes this heavy investment in negative ads against David Farley highly ironic and, honestly, a potential waste of focus. The analysis argues these resources should have been directed at the real contest, the Teal Independent Michelle Milthorp, or at least used to prosecute a broader case against the Labour Party across the country.
Finally, Section 5. Future political implications. Beyond the ballot box. Let's move to and see how this builds into what the ultimate result in FAR actually means for the entire nation.
Because the broader macro stakes here are incredibly high. First off, this serves as the very first major electoral test for the leadership of Angus Taylor and Matt Canavan. Second, for One Nation, this whole thing is about proving that their surging polling can actually translate into real votes, as they aim to win their first ever federal lower house seat. So ultimately, the local ad strategies, the candidate controversies, and those deep voter frustrations we've been discussing, they all tie directly back to federal momentum. It's all connected.
Which leaves us with this final, critical thought to chew on. If campaigns misread these regional frustrations and misallocate their resources today, what does it mean for the federal election in 2028? FAR is clearly acting as a massive warning light flashing on the dashboard of Australian politics right now. How the establishment responds next is absolutely going to shape the landscape for years to come. You'll definitely want to keep your eyes on those results. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.